Death by molten gold. Marcus Linnæus Crassus. If you think your bank account makes you a big shot, you clearly haven't met this filthy, rich Roman general from 53 BC. We're talking about a guy who could give modern billionaires a run for their money. Except he'd probably tell you, money can't buy happiness. Oh, but he'd add, and it certainly can't buy survival. Picture this. Marcus is like the Elon Musk of ancient Rome, plotting grand schemes of conquest instead of interstellar travel. Instead of wanting to build a Martian colony, he had his eyes set on Persia, dreaming of piles of riches and fame. For him, conquering a small country should be as simple as calling for a pepperoni pizza. Extra wealth, please. So off he marches with his loyal troops toward Persia, swaggering with confidence. But hold on to your togas, folks. This isn't going to be the easy victory he envisioned. The Persians, who weren't exactly known for their hospitality, had other plans. They slapped him down in battle, capturing our unfortunate general. Now, with Marcus at their mercy, the Persians decided to add a twist to his farewell party. Forget beheadings, they wanted a send-off as flashy as his glitzy gold bars. So, what do you do when you want to make a dramatic statement? Why not melt down some gold and turn Marcus into a human piggy bank? That's right. These wild Persians poured molten gold down his throat. Talk about a glitzy end. As the hot gold poured in, it melted his mouth, tongue, and internal organs, transforming poor Cruz into a golden statue of his own greed. By the time he kicked the bucket, he literally had a gold bar for a digestive tract. Marcus Linnæus Cruz, who lived and breathed wealth, ended up choking on the very symbol of his obsession, jumped into a volcano. Picture this. It's 430 BC in the land of Greece, and there's a philosopher strutting around named DlE. Now, this isn't your run-of-the-mill thinker. Nope. This guy is convinced he's not just smart, but he's basically Zeus in a toga. As his god complex bubbles over, the news spreads like wildfire, creating a buzz hotter than a sunbathing lizard. People begin to worship DlE like he's the Brad Pitt of ancient Greece, sans the charming grin, of course. But for DlE, basking in the adoration just wasn't cutting it anymore. Oh no, he wanted to crank his ego up to 11. So what does he do? He devises a wild plan that would make even the craziest reality star raise an eyebrow. He decides to leap into a hot volcano to prove his immortality. Yes, you heard that right. Gathering his most devoted followers, DlE marched up Mount Etna in Sicily, determined to pull off the ultimate stunt. After a climb that could rival the toughest CrossFit session, he finally reaches the summit, chest puffed out like a peacock. With a dramatic flourish worthy of the Oscars, he dives into the bubbling lava below, dreaming of emerging like a phoenix rising from the ashes, or maybe just taking a glorious dip in a hot spring. But plot twist. A few seconds into his fiery plunge, you can almost hear a whoops echoing through the mountain when it hits him. He might have made a teensy-weensy mistake. Instead of a divine splash, he ended up being roasted like a marshmallow left too long over a campfire. The only thing that survived this volcanic escapade was his trusty bronze sandal, which the volcano spat out like it was rejecting a stale muffin. As DlE's followers waited anxiously for their godly hero to emerge, they kept looking at each other, thinking, any minute now, right? But then they saw the sandal tumble down, and just like that, the truth hit them harder than a heavy Greek drama. They had been totally duped. Disheartened, they trudged home, probably feeling like they'd just been stood up for the world's most epic date, death by poetry. In the world of poetry, where words hold immense power, one poet took his obsession to an extreme that tragically cost him his life. Phadis, an ancient Greek poet, was so consumed by his craft that he spent days agonizing over every single line, akin to attempting to solve a crossword puzzle with a loaded gun at his head. Like many today who lose themselves in video games, Phadis's fixation only deepened over time. While players might indulge in snacks during their marathon gaming sessions, Phadis starved himself in pursuit of the perfect poem. He'd often remain awake for days, dissecting the meaning and rhythm of language, his health deteriorating as he became a frail shadow of his former self, akin to that one skeleton in your biology class. To prevent being swept away by even the gentlest breeze, his emaciated frame required heavy lead sandals, weighing him down. His obsession ultimately drove him mad. He ceased to eat or drink, withering away from starvation and dehydration, all while still fixated on crafting his magnum opus. Talk about a poetic end for a poet. Death by toilet. Picture this. It's a bright early morning in ancient China, and Duke Jing of Jin has just summoned a shaman to his palace to interpret a nightmare he had last night. Now, this shaman isn't one to sugarcoat things. He drops a shocking prediction like a comedic plot twist. Duke, my good sir, you won't live to see the delicious harvest of wheat in August. Cue ominous music, right? But August rolls around, and surprise, surprise, the Duke is still alive and kicking, strutting around like a peacock in a field of daisies. Feeling as cocky as a rooster in a henhouse, Duke Jing summons the shaman with a smug grin plastered on his face. Look at all this golden wheat. But faster than you can say, oops, my bad, the Duke has the poor shaman executed for being spectacularly wrong. I guess someone's crystal ball needs a tech upgrade. Now, as the Duke is about to dig into a glorious I'm still breathing feast, a familiar feeling hits him. You know, the call of nature. But hold on to your hats, because the royal throne of ancient China wasn't your typical porcelain throne. Nope. It was more like a gaping pit of doom that would make any modern toilet user shudder. As the Duke attempts to answer nature's mighty call, disaster strikes. He trips and whoosh, plunges headfirst into the royal toilet pit. Talk about making a dramatic entrance. He struggles valiantly, flailing for dear life, but alas, it's like trying to swim in a sea of molasses. There's no way out, and the sound of his splashes is drowned out by the gurgling of, well, you can guess. His royal remains don't stay lost for long. A rather unfortunate slave stumbles upon the scene later that day, and to make matters worse, is buried alongside the Duke to serve him in the afterlife. Now that's what I call a sticky situation and a strange twist on lifetime employment. Death by tooth. If you've ever watched those epic ancient Viking movies, you know these guys live for battle, blood, and the belief that one day they'll party it up in the glorious halls of Valhalla with Odin himself. Imagine an endless frat party, but with more axes and way fewer keg stands. Now, let's talk about one particularly audacious Viking named Sigurd the Mighty. This guy had all the makings of a legendary warrior, but his end is the kind of story that could earn you a permanent seat in the afterlife's waiting room, complete with snickers and eye rolls from other lost souls. It all kicked off back in 892 AD after Sigurd fought valiantly against a local ruler named MBTA. Seriously, where's the creativity with names? Sigurd won the day like a true champion by severing M's noggin and tying it to his horse as a trophy of his glorious victory. As Sigurd rode home, basking in the glory of his epic win, his horse jostled about, turning M's severed head into a twisted bobblehead doll. Talk about a bizarre accessory. But hold your shields. This is where things get a bit grim and giggle-worthy. As that grotesque bobblehead bounced around, one of M's teeth took a little holiday and scratched Sigurd's leg. At first, our mighty warrior shrugged it off. What's a tiny scratch compared to the gaping wounds from battle? He had bigger fish to fry. Little did he know, that seemingly harmless scratch was like an invitation for trouble, an unwelcome houseguest that quickly turned into a full-blown infection. The infection spread faster than gossip in a small Viking village, turning Sigurd the Mighty from a warrior with an epic axe to a fabled tale of ridiculousness. And just like that, Sigurd met his end. Not by an enemy's sword or a glorious battle cry, but by a tooth. Can you imagine the poor guy's fate? Picture him showing up at the gates of Valhalla, ready to raise a mug of mead, only to be laughed at for the silliest reason. Death by a turkey. On a sunny afternoon, March 20th, 1793, in the charming land of North Carolina, Samuel Spencer, a spry 59-year-old retired military officer, was living the ultimate American dream, napping blissfully on his porch. Picture him, red cap perched jauntily atop his head, dozing serenely like a champ in the middle of a lazy Sunday. As Spencer drifted in and out of dreamland, his head bobbed around like a bobblehead doll on a bumpy road, catching the eye of his neighbor's turkey. Yes, you heard that right. A turkey. This feathery fowl clearly didn't have its thinking cap on, because it waddled right up for a closer look. Mistaking Spencer's red-bobbing noggin for a fellow turkey, the curious bird couldn't resist the urge to investigate and lunged forward with its talons out. Unfortunately for Samuel, the turkey's not-so-gentle touch ended up cutting the largest vein in his neck. Suddenly, things went from idyllic nap to a horror flick in the blink of an eye, transforming Spencer's peaceful porch into something that would make Dracula's mouth water. Waking up more confused than a chameleon caught in a bag of M&Ms, Spencer found himself choking on his own blood, sputtering in panic like a fountain that had gone haywire. In mere moments, his once quiet afternoon turned into a scene straight out of a horror movie. You can just imagine the chaos as his cheerful porch morphed into a crimson disaster zone. A few hours later, the neighbors stumbled upon Spencer's unfortunate fate, totally bathed in his own blood. And as for the killer turkey, it didn't get to strut its stuff on Thanksgiving after all. Nope. It met its own doom, swiftly served a death sentence, and from that day on became the infamous first turkey in history to both give and receive a death sentence. Poisoned by Mercury. Qin Shi Huang, the very first emperor of China. Now, while most of us hear the phrase, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, Qin had a much different motto. A mercury pill a day grants me eternal life. Spoiler alert, it didn't quite pan out the way he hoped. Qin Shi Huang was known for his grand accomplishments, including the monumental task of building the Great Wall of China. But somewhere along the way, our ambitious emperor began to have second thoughts about his own mortality. Enter the next chapter of his saga, the quest for immortality. He brought in the smartest alchemists from near and far, offering them his lavish palace and limitless resources, all in the name of concocting the legendary elixir of life. Now, let's be real. These alchemists knew full well that immortality was a tall tale, but who would dare tell the emperor such a thing? Certainly not anyone hoping to keep their heads attached. So instead, they got busy, mixing mercury with all sorts of bizarre ingredients, crafting what they labeled as a magical potion for eternal life. Once they whipped it up, they convinced the unsuspecting emperor to start chowing down on this toxic treat like it was the latest superfood. If only someone had handed him a basic chemistry lesson, right? Little did he know that ingesting mercury is akin to knocking back a glass of potent poison. For those wondering just how much harm mercury can do, this stuff is nasty. It can wreak havoc on the kidneys, nervous system, lungs, and even the brain. And guess how that little experiment ended for Qin Shi Huang? That's right. The emperor found himself suffering from the unfortunate effects of mercury poisoning. He kicked the bucket at the tender age of 49 with enough mercury swirling around in his system to fill 100 thermometers.
Thanks for watching. I hope you like it. Next video will be coming soon. Bye!